What if I told you that the most skilled magical craftsmen in the wizarding world were legally banned from using wands? Sounds absurd, right? But that's exactly what happened to goblins. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were too good, too smart, too independent. The law wasn't about safety, it was about control. And behind that control, centuries of fear, prejudice, and power struggles swept under the magical rug. So, why were goblins really forbidden from using wands? The truth will make you question everything you thought you knew about the wizarding world. Before the Statute of Secrecy turned the magical world into a global game of hide-and-seek, wizards weren't exactly known for their brilliant political structures. Enter the Wizards' Council, an early form of governance that was as flawed as a cauldron with a hole in it. Sure, they had good intentions, but good intentions, as history loves to remind us, don't pay the rent or protect magical creatures from deeply rooted prejudice. If you've ever wondered how bureaucracy and bigotry can shake hands, this is your moment. Now don't get it twisted. The council wasn't composed of dark wizards in black cloaks twirling mustaches. These were well-meaning folks who truly believed they were doing the right thing. But here's the kicker. They were blinded by their own superiority complex. Any magical creature that didn't walk on two legs, speak fluent wizard, and own a wand was tossed aside like last week's Bertie Bott's beans. Even beings with near-human intelligence like centaurs and house elves got the short end of the wand. Speaking of centaurs, let's talk about their quiet rebellion. These majestic half-human, half-horse beings took one look at wizard kinds, judgmental eyes, and said, "Thanks, but no thanks." They retreated to the forbidden forest, choosing isolation over integration. You'd think that kind of independence would earn respect, right? Nope. Wizards labeled them wild and unpredictable, probably because centaurs didn't beg for approval or invitations to ministry galas. Then there's the tragedy of the house elves, who were so deeply conditioned they actually wanted to serve. Think about that. A whole species tricked into believing they were born to iron robes and polished trophies. It's like Stockholm Syndrome in a tea cozy. They weren't born servants. They were taught to love their chains. Winky didn't mean to insult you, sir. Goblet of Fire. That line, it's not cute. It's heartbreaking. And let's not forget the goblins, the craftsmen, the bankers, the misunderstood geniuses of the magical economy. Brilliant enough to forge enchanted treasures like Gryffindor's sword, but not pure enough to sit at the table where the laws were written. Wizards gladly used their talents, then locked them out of the conversation. That, my friend, wasn't just prejudice. It was systemic exclusion. And oh, just wait till you hear what happens when the goblins decide they've had enough. Let's talk goblins because, honestly, they're the unsung geniuses of the magical world. These aren't your average magical beings hoarding gold in dark tunnels. Nope. Goblins are artisans. Legends with metal and gemstone. Ever heard of Godric Gryffindor's sword? Pure silver, goblin-made, absorbs anything that strengthens it. That's not just craftsmanship, that's magic with a PhD. And who made it? Ragnuk, king of the goblins. And boy, did things get complicated after that masterpiece left his hands. See, Ragnuk didn't exactly gift the sword to Gryffindor. He lent it. At least, that's the goblin version. The official wizarding story? Gryffindor accepted the sword with honor. The goblin version? Gryffindor stole it. Ragnuk even sent hit squads to retrieve it. Yeah, over a sword. But in goblin culture, a created object is never truly owned by anyone except its maker. Selling it, temporary, dying, doesn't change ownership. That sword, to them, should have gone right back to the goblins the moment Gryffindor croaked. And that, my friend, is where the real feud began. The sword wasn't just a weapon. It became a symbol of cultural theft. Imagine pouring your soul into creating something, only for someone to take it, mount it in a goblet-filled trophy room, and call it theirs forever. That's not just disrespectful. That's grounds for generational rage. Goblins didn't forget. They don't forget. In fact, to this day, they consider most magical transactions with wizards as spiritual theft. Petty? Maybe. Justified? You decide. But let's not forget the most brutal irony. While goblins were being treated like second-class magical citizens, they were also literally building the financial backbone of the wizarding world. Gringotts. Founded in 1474 by a goblin named, wait for it, Gringotts. And yet, in its early years, the bank was overseen by wizards. That's right. Goblins created it, and wizards took the keys. It's like letting someone build your house and then telling them they can sleep in the garage. And if that wasn't enough, the 15th century gave us a chilling example of how deep the hatred ran. Yardley Platt, a serial killer whose specialty was murdering goblins. Not dark wizards, not criminals. Goblins. Why? Because they were lesser. That's not just prejudice. That's evil with a hobby. And somehow, the magical justice system didn't treat this as a wake-up call. They just moved on, like it was a footnote in history. But goblins, they remembered, always. All right, so let's imagine this. You're a goblin. You've got unmatched skill, ancient knowledge, and a cultural code of honor. And yet, every time you turn around, some robe-wearing wizard is telling you what you can't do. Can't vote. Can't use a wand. Can't claim back the legendary sword you made. Eventually, even the most diplomatic goblin would raise an eyebrow, and a rebellion. That's exactly what happened in 1612, when Urg the Unclean said, "Enough." Urg wasn't just angry. He was strategic. He picked Hogsmeade as the center of his uprising and claimed the Three Broomsticks as his base. That's right. Today, it's the cozy pub where students sip butterbeer. Back then, ground zero for revolution. Goblins were tired of being shut out of magical law and culture. And the real boiling point? Wand rights. Wizards saw wand use as a privilege. Goblins saw it as a basic magical right. The clash was inevitable. Here's the brutal part. The Council of Wizards didn't try to negotiate. They sent troops. The result? Casualties on all sides. Goblins, wizards, even muggles caught in the crossfire. And when they finally caught Urg, did they imprison him? No, they made an example of him, burned upside down for the world to see. Not exactly the kind of justice system you brag about at family dinners. It wasn't just about ending a rebellion. It was about sending a message. But guess what? That message didn't land the way they thought. Instead of scaring goblins into submission, it added fuel to the fire. The 17th and 18th centuries saw a string of goblin uprisings, each one louder, angrier, and harder to silence. And while history books often skim over them like an afterthought, these revolts were loud declarations of identity. Goblins didn't want to destroy wizard kind. They just wanted respect. But in a world where your wand license depends on your species, good luck with that. And if you're wondering, why didn't they just stop fighting? Well, imagine constantly being told your hands are good enough to craft magical swords, but not to hold a wand. That level of contradiction isn't just offensive, it's existential. Goblins fought not just for political change, but for cultural survival. And as we'll see next, even when the laws changed, the mindset didn't shift nearly fast enough. After centuries of revolts, you'd think the magical world would finally get the hint. Spoiler alert, they kinda did, but only in bits and pieces. In 1631, the wizarding world made a groundbreaking move by doubling down on the discrimination. That year, a law was passed outright banning non-human creatures, yes, goblins included, from using wands. It was like saying, we hear your concerns and we're going to ignore them with extra flair. Ironically, goblins didn't need wands to do magic. But the law was more about power than practicality. Enter Elfrida Clegg, the unexpected voice of reason in a room full of egos. As the head of the Wizards' Council, she did something rare. She listened. She called for peace between goblins. And wizards banned mutual attacks and tried to clean up the mess left by centuries of magical arrogance. Oh, and she banned the use of the golden snidget in Quidditch. Because yes, even magical sports had a body count. Progress? Definitely. Perfection? Not even close. Elfrida also attempted to redefine what it meant to be a being versus an animal in magical law. You'd think that would be obvious, right? If it talks, reasons, and files complaints, it's probably not a pet. But old habits die. Hard. And the council wasn't ready to toss centuries of superiority out the window. Her reforms were progressive, no doubt. But they were also met with the same resistance you'd expect from a wizard who just found out he shares rights with the creature who forged his vault key. Then, in 1811, Grogan Stump stepped into the political ring and shook things up again. He redefined the term being to include any creature with enough intelligence to understand magical law and be held accountable for it. Finally, goblins weren't just bank managers. They were citizens under the law. Of course, being included in the system doesn't mean being trusted by it, but still, it was a step. And in a world where wizards change time and space like socks, one little step is historic. And by 1865, the tides were truly turning, at least on paper. Goblins took back the reins of Gringotts, officially becoming the primary operators of the bank they founded centuries earlier. Sure, there were still wizard employees, but the goblins were in charge. Seems fair, right? Create the system, run the system. But don't get too comfortable, because just as goblins started reclaiming power, the shadows of old conflicts began creeping back in. You'd think that by the time Voldemort came around, the wizarding world would have learned a thing or two about, not treating powerful beings like garbage. But nope. During Voldemort's reign, goblins weren't just overlooked. They were hunted. Entire families were wiped out, their homes raided, their lives erased. Not because they supported the Dark Lord, but because they didn't. Neutrality, in war, makes you a target, especially if you're a goblin with a vault full of ancient knowledge and enchanted silver. Some goblins decided they were done playing nice, done trusting wizards who quoted laws by day and ignored them by night. That's where the rebels come in. Underground factions formed, groups who didn't just want equality but independence. Take Narlac, for example. If you watched Fantastic Beasts, you've seen him running his speakeasy with not one but 2 wands. That's not rebellion, that's a statement. He didn't ask for permission. He carved out his space in a world that never wanted to share. But let's be honest, these aren't just rebels. They're survivors of a system that keeps rewriting the rules to keep them at the bottom. And the irony? Wizards still rely on goblins for everything from banking to security charms. It's like someone punching their doctor in the face and then asking for a prescription. Goblins play the long game. They always have, and they know the system better than most wizards do. That's power, even if it's quiet. And yet, despite centuries of progress, discrimination still lingers like a bad potion stain. Wizards may have stopped outlawing goblins outright, but subtle exclusion is alive and well. Legal loopholes, biased education, social customs that keep goblins in their place. It's systemic, and goblins see it for what it is. Sure, you'll find goblins in boardrooms and banking halls, but when was the last time one taught? At Hogwarts? Exactly. So here we are, a world supposedly united under magic, still cracked by speciesism. Goblins aren't done fighting. And honestly, can you blame them? The laws changed, but hearts? Not so much. And until the magical world confronts that inconvenient truth, those 2 wands in Narlac's hands, they're not just weapons, they're a warning. So, what do you think? Should goblins be allowed to use wands? Or is there more to this magical ban than we've been told? Drop your thoughts in the comments, especially if you've got a theory the ministry wouldn't approve of. And hey, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the wizarding world is darker and deeper than it looks on the surface. Curious about how a curse can twist someone's fate forever? Then click on the next video. Nagini's Curse, a life trapped in magic. It's wilder than any prophecy.